The police could only find evidence that Sam wore Nike tops. And what about the second witness's claim that the man he saw had blonde hair? Sam's hair is brown.
The whole case against Sam depended upon the identification of the two witnesses. If the two people who were there can't say they were sure it was Sam Hallam, how can a jury?
So why did the jury convict Sam? Well, the case was fiendishly complicated. Remember, there were 7 people in the dock, but the murder weapon was never found, and there was no forensic evidence to link any of the defendants to the case. Could it have weighed heavily on the court that when Sam was arrested, he exercised the right not to answer any police questions?
No comment.
Possibly more crucially, he didn't have an alibi. When Sam was first arrested, he told police that he was playing football just under a mile away from when the fight took place. But the problem was, his alibi didn't stand up. To find out more, I met up with Sam's 2 older brothers, Danny and Terry. Danny, what can you tell me about the lack of Sam's alibi?
He wasn't sure where he was, and then he said that he was with his friend, and then, I don't know, his friend said that he wasn't with him.
Unless you're ready for something, you don't know. I don't know what I was doing last Thursday night, you know.
And it was 10 days later at least as well.
Sam's friend said he wasn't playing football with Sam on the night of the murder. Although when questioned in court, he did say he could have been mistaken. Lack of alibi for a murder is something I have personal experience of, and I was completely innocent. 15 years ago, I was watching the telly with my wife, and a photo fit of me came up on something like Crime Watch, one of those programs, and we were laughing. You know, that really does look like me. 2 weeks later, there was a knock on the door, and it was the police. And I was taken away to Leeds, banged up on a 72-hour bang up. I didn't know where I was on the day that this murder and this attack took place. Because, you know, I remember when Elvis died, I remember where I was, I remember when John Lennon died, where I was, but I didn't remember, I couldn't tell you where I was last Thursday. I couldn't tell you where I was when this took place. My experience spurs me on to find out more about Sam's case. There are CCTV images that show the crowds of people as they walk from Oxton towards Barle Street where the fight took place. You can see many of the others charged with murder, but the jury later decided they'd only been present as witnesses and not actually participated in the attack. Sam can't be seen in these pictures, anywhere near the scene. And the police told the court they could find no images from that night of a white boy on a bike, as a second prosecution witness had claimed. I've spoke to members of my family, and I've spoke to members of Sam's family, but now I'm going to go and talk to the kids that were there that night, and hopefully find some new kids that were there that night, people that were arrested who were let go. So, and hopefully at the end of it I'll have a little bit more evidence. Come around this way. Jermaine McKinney and Danny Martin are 2 boys who were there that night. They themselves were also charged with murder, but they were acquitted. They agreed to take me down to the murder scene to show me exactly where the fight took place. So this is the doorway where the first part of the fight happened?
This is where it started happening, here, this bit here. This where it actually happened.
Yeah.
And I was standing over there where them men are.
Gotcha, yeah.
And I was coming from up there.
Where'd you end up?
I was over there by the bins, then I come obviously closer to the lamppost.
Right. And how many people were around the door here when it was all taking place?
About...
From that pole there, that all of this was full up.
Full up with people, yeah, all of it was full up with people, but there was only about, I'd say about 8 or something around the door that actually there.
Danny and Jermaine were both in positions where they could see the fight. They were shocked when a couple of days later they heard that people were talking about Sam Hallam being involved. They say they hadn't seen him at the fight, and in fact Jermaine says Sam knew nothing about the fight until he was told about it. I think you saw Sam a couple of days later, didn't you?
Yeah. I said to him that something happened the other night around here, and they're saying that you was involved, that me and you were involved, so be careful when you're around there. And he didn't know what I was talking about until I told him, and then a couple of days later, his brother told me that the police came and arrested him for it.
Yeah, I got you, yeah.
But he weren't nothing to do with it.
Let me ask you two something. Do you think he done it?
No.
Do you know he didn't
I
do it?
know for a fact he did.
Right.
Yeah, 200% he didn't do it.
Despite the defence highlighting what they saw as a lack of evidence, and despite his previous good character, the jury convicted Sam. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, with the order that he should serve a minimum of 12 years. Sam's family were devastated.
How do you feel inside? I mean, do you think it was a mistake? Do you think, well, maybe he done it, and maybe he was there, or...?
No, because there was youths coming up, my mum saying he wasn't even there, the youths that were at the scene.
Right. Tell me when, how you felt and how you reacted to the news that, you know, the court cases come to an end and they say he's guilty.
I just thought I want my mum.
Yeah.
But, and I remember coming back and I did ring Bobby in the cab.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sam's family couldn't believe that Sam was found guilty. I know my nephew Bobby was absolutely devastated.
Take a minute, Angel. Come here.
After the guilty verdict, the family arranged a meeting at the local community centre to discuss Sam's conviction. 200 people attended. So this is the CCTV.
Okay, this was taken on the estate.
Paul May has worked on many successful miscarriage of justice campaigns, including the Birmingham 6 and the Bridgewater 4. He has now started up the Sam Hallam campaign. So can you tell us why you got involved with this?
First of all, this is a very young person who, in our belief, is entirely innocent, who's serving life imprisonment. It's completely wrong that the inconsistent testimony of two witnesses, which is riddled with anomalies and discrepancies, should be the basis on which this young man is serving life imprisonment. So a number of us got involved because we very strongly feel that a miscarriage of justice has taken place, and that Sam Hallam should be freed from prison.
I've gone through all the paperwork. For what I know, I've looked at all the evidence, I've looked at photographs, I've spoke to people. I know the background of the kid through a family of mine, and I cannot for the life of me, putting myself in a place of a juror, see how I can come to the conclusion of guilty.
We think it was a highly significant factor in Sam Hallam's conviction that the trial judge said that the male witness had agreed with a police statement that he had made. He had agreed that he had made it. He had actually disowned it at trial, but right. The jury could be forgiven for thinking that their memory must be inadequate or defective, and the trial judge had got it right, when in fact the trial judge had got it wrong.
For meeting Paul today, a man who's worked on many of these cases, who only seems to take cases where he has a gut instinct and he reads the facts. This is an intelligent man who's come into this case not knowing the family, not having any connections with the family. So for me, it's just made it's kind of made my feelings about it a lot stronger. Earlier this year, Sam's case was heard at the Court of Appeal on the grounds that the identification evidence against Sam was so unreliable it should never have gone before a jury. The appeal court ruled that the warning the judge gave to the jury had been sufficient. Sam's family are now preparing to take the case to the Criminal Cases Review Commission.
How often do you get to talk to them?
Get to go and see him about twice a month.
Twice a month, yeah. And what about
Sam has now been in Aylesbury Young Offenders Institute for 3 years. His family all miss him terribly, including his 11-year-old sister Daisy. So how often do you get to talk to Sam?
Like when he rings up, like on Saturday and stuff.
Yeah. And have you been along to see him? Yeah. What was that like?
It's nice to see him because where I don't see him for such a long time.
Yeah.
It's just really a nice feeling.
Yeah. It's hard to be certain exactly what happened on the night of the 11th of October 2004. All we know is that a stupid teenage fight over nothing has destroyed 3 young people's lives. Bullabek Ring Beyond found guilty of murder. Sam Hallam, a young man who many now believe is innocent, serving life for an offence they say he didn't commit. And the needless and shameful death of Osias Castleton, who died trying to help a friend.
Actor Ray Winston reporting.